And you guys know a good riddle?
No.
This is Auto Collabs.
Remember the riddles you would try to solve in like middle school?
My dad literally, and this is one time he came to our house and we were just sitting on the couches, hanging out, talking, and he just started telling riddles to my kids to like discover. And it was an endless treasure trove of riddles over and over and over. And I was like, where do you store all
Right.
of these?
Where's all this coming from?
It was wild.
I feel like I grew up in a riddle. You know what I mean? It's like, like my dad.
I get
comes
it
to me and
now.
says-
I get the whole thing.
Yeah, it's like dad walks in and says, "You have 4 sisters," and that's it. It's like, figure that out. You're like,
Then you're like, "What? I only know 3 of them." Wait a minute. All right, here I have a riddle for you. I'm built in lines, but sold in rows. I carry people where they go. My heart is fire. My breath is air. I sleep in lots, but roam everywhere. With 4 feet turning, I dash with might. What am I? Shining in the light.
this is Michael Cirillo at 3 a.m. with ferocious heartburn.
It's a car.
It's a car. Yeah.
I don't know. That was pretty lame, GPT.
I was going to say you asked GPT for that.
Well,
yeah, it's built in assembly lines and sold in rows. Yeah, it was real easy.
It wasn't that. It definitely wasn't hard.
Yeah,
it definitely wasn't
about cars.
I know. Well, today we're get to meet a new person, Monik from Toma. Talk about solving riddles. What do you do with so much information, especially with phone calls and all the data being produced? How do you make something useful out of it? I mean, more useful than the riddle I just read. We hope you enjoy this conversation we have. Was you going to say something? Who said something?
No,
I thought
my chair.
Was that what it was? We'll blame it on Kyle's chair. Either way, we hope you enjoy this interview with Monik. Monik, thank you so much for joining us today. It's so good to be here with you.
Hey, Paul, it's my pleasure.
All right. So one of the favorite things that we love about this particular show is that we don't just talk tech and talk strategy. We like to talk about the people side of the business. And one question that I personally love asking is, how did you actually get into the auto industry?
Well, serendipity. I feel like anybody else I've spoken to who's been in the auto business always told me that, hey, the car business chooses you, and you don't get to choose. And I think it's been true.
It's true.
I just somehow landed in there, but it's been a fun journey. My background is like actually engineering, building things, selling things like that had nothing to do with cars for the most part, just software. And then we were working on a project with my co-founder for a while, and we did a lot of different things, a lot of random things. Like we built stuff for diet recommendation tools for patients with chronic conditions. My co-founder actually sold nipple covers for a while on Amazon.
Okay.
All right.
Necessary.
A lot of learnings, but eventually we started building something that we had one dealer that really liked what we did, and so we were building a voice AI platform for them, and they then went and spoke to their 20 group, and they told them that, hey, this thing has been kind of working. It was horrible at the first when we made the first version. It was awful.
You're like, don't tell anyone, please.
Well, isn't that what they say? Anything worth doing is worth doing terribly at first.
Yeah, right. And it was so funny. Like, if I start talking about the bugs and the issues we had, you'd laugh. Like, we made an error where somewhere we left a comment saying "act like a cowboy," and we forgot to remove it. And the next thing is the call goes in, and it's like, "Howdy, partner. Like, would you like to book an oil change?" And the person actually goes and books the oil change. That's
no.
But I have the actual call recording. It's really funny. And the general manager then emailed me and saying, "Hey, the AI is acting like a cowboy." And I'm like, "Yeah, because that's what
it's a cowboy who can close is the only thing you need to worry about, right? Apparently."
But it was all funny like that, right? Like sometimes it would take it was like talking to a walkie-talkie, you'd get a response in like 10 seconds and people are patient, whatever, right? Like we just started with that. we had one dealer that kind of that was okay with all the problems that we had, still liked it, and told the 20 group. And then more folks came into us, and they're like, "Looks like what you have is something that solves our problem. So maybe you should help us too." And then we said, "Why not? Let's try it." At that point, we had no idea about like why dealerships want this. Like we because we were working with hospitals, with like banks, and everybody was moving so slowly. But dealers were like, "Hey, it
Let's
works.
go.
Let's go.
Yeah.
Let's
Like
see what happens."
Wait a second.
We'll
Okay.
test this sucker tomorrow. Right. Let's
Say
do
that
it.
again, because I think dealers are a lot of times seen from other industries, and like retail auto is seen as like the slow movers,
As like old
oh,
industry,
they seem
yeah.
behind. But you're like, no. Well, and it sounded like you were working with a lot of regulated industries, which are already somewhat slow. But of those, at least, it seemed like the dealers were kind of like ready to throw in a little bit
Yeah.
quicker.
Yeah, like because a bank gave me a questionnaire and they said, "How can you guarantee that this AI is not going to be informal?" And I was like, "That's a
can't.
tough one because how can you guarantee if your agents are not being informal and at the call center, right? Like that's a really tough question."
That's a great like, how do you guarantee it? It's like, well, we monitor them. It's like, yep, so do we. Right?
And I mean, like, how much formality do you need in like home loans? I mean, I'm sure there's like obviously the regulations, different countries have different rules.
Yeah,
But
howdy partner might not do it, right?
yeah, right.
To give you my social security number.
But obviously, in its infancy, like the technology is new. There are a lot of risks associated with it. It has matured a lot over the last year, so these questions don't even come up anymore. But a year and a half ago, that was how it was, and dealers were willing to take risks. And personally, I love that so much because if you're building something new and you really wanted to break new ground and like you want to explore new territory, you'll fail, of course, right? You'll make mistakes, but you need to have that space for failure. We don't have any of that with other industries because they're a little slow moving, right? For a lot of reasons. That's why we loved it. And when we step into the dealership, like we walk around and we spoke to like every person, right? From the person who's the lot porter to like the general manager, owners, every person in the chain, and we're like everybody had like all of these ideas on like how this should be different. And sometimes it's conflicting with what other people are saying in the store too, right? Which is pretty natural. That's when we started seeing like common thread, like okay, there is a lot of opportunity and it's very underserved. Despite there being so many like tools, I don't think they're really hitting the mark and like solving all the pain points. Some of them do a really good job, but like overall there's still a lot of scope. So all in all, we're building something. There's some traction. There's so much more that we can do. Put it all together, we're like, okay, we're going all in. Like forget the banks, forget the hospitals. Like I don't know how many decades it's going to take to make it something really exceptional over there, but here we're just going to dive in and do our job.
And you're
I
never
love that.
you're
So-
never going back.
Nope.
Never go. It's not possible. Just so you know, you can't get out.
Even if
now.
you wanna
You're
try.
locked in.
That's the second part, right? Like it chooses you and then you're in.
So we were talking that you're a soccer fan
Yeah.
before this.
Here we go.
And so
Right.
I coach. I know, Paul. Sorry. Just hang with us for a minute, Paul. Hang with us. So unfortunately, Monik he's also a Real Madrid fan, which is a problem, but we'll get over it for a second. Okay.
What is the problem? Tell me.
I'm a City fan. All right.
I have
That's
no
your-
problem with either of yours.
That's your problem.
All right. So I'm a soccer coach. I coach kids, and I've been watching a lot of like soccer coaching videos. I'm going somewhere with this, but I was watching the soccer coaching video, and this coach was coaching probably like 12-year-old boys and girls, and they kept saying sorry, right? Like, and it's actually, if you know soccer, if you've been around soccer, there's this very like, it's one of those words, right? Like unlucky that people will say. People will be like, "Oh, unlucky," "Oh, so sorry, missed." Like if you missed the pass or something like that. And he said, never again are you allowed to say sorry, because all that happened when you missed the pass, when you were unsuccessful, is an unsuccessful attempt at greatness.
Yeah.
Right. And so like keep attempting that, because like if you were attempting that pass into the open field and the person could have run onto it, but you just barely missed it, you don't have to say sorry for messing up because you didn't do anything wrong. Sorry is wrong, right? Unsuccessful attempts at greatness are just unsuccessful. And I think what you were saying there, and I think this is so key, especially when we think about like dealers trying new things or tech partners trying new things. A lot of times we just want solutions that are silver bullets that always work 100% of the time and they never fail. And we always know that they provide value. But sometimes there's unsuccessful attempts at greatness that if you stop those, if you don't give yourself the opportunity to make those, then you never make the cool thing next. Is there somewhere that like point back to something where you're like, we've really tried this and it was an unsuccessful attempt at greatness, but we know that like on the other side, there's probably something really cool?
So just to, I guess to back up that point that you said, right? About like trying things and things not working out, and same thing with like soccer, right? Like also that people saying sorry, I think that's like a more Europe, it's like Europe saying sorry. That's not
It
really
is for sure.
apologizing. They're just,
Or Canadian,
yeah.
little both.
But I think like, when was the last time something in your life went according to plan, like everything just went according to plan? When was that one time that happened? I don't remember any single time in my life, like whether it's in business or outside of it. Like, so I mean, that doesn't mean you don't make plans, right? Of course you'll have plans and you have some goals. So we've always, like with our product or like many things in the past, as well as I've built like I used to build a lot of like social networking websites like in 2007. That was when I was in high school, and we are trying to build all these like products for users. And we would build these amazing features. We'd add like, oh, if you're in Central Park, you can make these groups based on sports, and people will come in, and you'll like all know when you're gonna play, and all that sounds so great, right? It
Wait,
sounds.
what was that app called?
It was called Active Life NYC. So this was,
Love it.
I was in high school. I think I was like, I don't know, maybe 16 years old or 15 years old, and I found a customer. He was a instructor in Central Park, like I think a fitness instructor, and he was like, "Let's make a social network. Let's get everybody to like come here, and then have these common interests, and then they'll put videos on there, photos on here. It'll be like a mini Facebook of like people who just play sports, right?" And on paper, it's like, it's great. Of course you want to have all these communities, you want to know who you play with, you want to come and do all these things. We put all the features in there, every single thing. Like, I spent like a year building it, and I think only 4 people used it.
Wow.
uh, and
Wow.
it was like rough, because I spent so much time building it, and I thought of every single feature. I was like, this would be amazing, this would be blah blah blah, and you're trying to do all that, but people just didn't want it. They just rejected it, and they're like, screw it, I'll just post the picture on Facebook, for example, right? So I think throughout, like even with our current product, we've tried like, i- if we have 5 features that work, for that we have like 20 features that didn't work.
Mm.
So every single thing, like I would say, we've like done that again and again. We try to think ahead and get there, but I think failure is just a natural part. And I think we're even tired to say sorry. We're like, whatever. It always happens, right? It's accepted. So screw it. Let's do the next thing.
So there's so much. I think there's such a variety of opinions and thoughts on what AI actually is and how it can actually be used inside the dealership to cut down on repetitive tasks or to increase lead quality, close rates, all of these things. You have a unique position in that you get to look inside all of these things, formulate a product around them. What do you see as, we'll call it, the lowest hanging fruit of auto dealers who are thinking like, how do I implement AI into my operations in some way? What do you think is the lowest hanging fruit that you would encourage dealers to say, hey, dip your toe in the water here?
I think if there's any specific thing that you do that does not require creativity, it should be automated. So, for example, right, like booking appointments for like specific things, like in comes like whatever, whatever I need to request for, and then out goes a specific static appointment, automated. But if there's like something that's more requires more creativity, right? Where you're constructing like some kind of an offer, you're trying to like appeal to someone. That's better handled by humans. So I think it's like first step is distinction between what should be automated and what should be not, and then whatever has to be automated, you automate that part. So I'll tell you, because I've listened to over 4,000 calls, like maybe on 3x 4x speed over the last year and a half, and a majority of the calls are actually repetitive. Like they have these elements of, like even within appointment bookings, when you're dealing with specific loan or cars, like there's always like this rule in mind, like, oh, if this then that, if this then don't do that, right? So a lot of it, what we, even things that we don't think are, repetitive, they actually are, because when you look at like, 4 or 5 thousand
You
calls, you're like,
realize
oh,
how much it actually happens.
Mm.
the same thing. You're just doing like if and else, right? So a lot of that can be automated. I think best use of AI is actually doing whatever can be done multiple times, like, giving it to the AI and only taking the stuff like that's really, really requires you to involve yourself and have that creativity. And also, like, the customer expects that, because I mean, what personal touch do you want when you're booking an oil change, right? I mean, of course, there is to some degree you want that, but like, wouldn't you better serve that time, like, giving, pre-qualifying somebody for a used car, things like that, right?
Mhm.
So it's understanding what to automate, what not, and once you've decided on what to automate, going all out on that end to end, and then taking the rest and then giving it to someone who's like, trained for that purpose, right? A human.
Yeah.
Do you tinker with automation outside of like the work thing, or do you get tired of it in building a product?
His whole real life is full manual, right? Like even as manual windows. Yeah.
Exactly. I mean, let's see. I think the Waymo, so that's some degree of automation outside, where
Oh.
It's it's actually really funny. But yeah, Waymos are cool. Like at least in San Francisco, you can take them now and then. Initially, it's like a little scary, but then once you get in it, and you're like, okay, like if it says 3 minutes, it'll be there in 3 minutes. And
Oh.
one thing is that if I'm late, I'm always very nervous because if I'm like a minute or 2 minutes late, the Uber driver is like just getting annoyed. But with Waymo, I'm like, whatever.
Oh, I didn't
That's
think
like
about that.
and also if you're driving, you can always cut way more off. Like I mean, it's very nice. So I like that aspect too. If you're on the other side,
I never thought about that, but
Oh,
yeah,
that's
like
hilarious.
people just like, oh yeah, it's a robot. It's
yeah,
fine.
Waymo's just like, oh, it's fine.
yeah,
I'll readjust.
yeah, way more on the other side. Hell yeah, turn left. Like whatever.
Oh, that's hilarious. That's
But
amazing.
yeah, not too much. I mean, just with work, like you have all these email automations and like summaries of meetings that you can get after that. So you could do a lot of like small things that I've been doing. They're pretty good. It'll just make a to-do list after every meeting, so you never have to like think of like, oh, I need to do this or that. But yeah, like randomizing what to eat. I mean, some people love choosing what to eat. For me, it's like I keep getting confused. So I have this extension. I'll just randomize this thing on DoorDash, and we'll just pick like, oh, all right,
No
this
way.
item, and then just get it. Uh,
That's amazing.
You're like, I'm sick of making decisions. I'm sick of
yeah, and I'll eat it. I'm like, whatever, right? It is what it is.
it.
But that's a great like that's actually similar, but it's the same type of thing as like Steve Jobs only wears black shirts, right? But to reduce the decision making necessary so that he can make the decisions on the hard things, right? And it's the same thing. It's like deciding what food today, put that on the robot. Like it'll just pick something different for me. I'll do the hard thing, which is listening to 4,000 calls to see
Oh
if,
my goodness.
to see if we've made the if then statements correct across that many calls. That's the hard thing. That's what needs the human thing. What are you most excited about in your product as you're like building toward the next things? I think a lot of people are starting to get familiar with, oh, we can have some level of AI or machine learning kind of like take and capture, especially service calls because they're high volume, they're repetitive. But what are you excited about as the evolution of like voice AI when it comes to consumer interaction?
So I think it's really voice AI is like just a channel. It could be text, it could be email, it could be any channel, right? It's really the work that gets done behind the receiver, Like that's complicated. And what has happened over time is that, initially, maybe 20 years ago, you had an operator, then you had a phone tree, right? Which is like press one, press two, press three for this, right? This is the next generation, like next evolution of that, which is like, hey, what do you need help with, right? And then you can like figure out and do things, automatically. A lot of times you'll transfer in cases where you cannot help them. What is happening is that the things that you have to transfer for will keep shrinking over time. So, let's
Mm.
say in the past you'd be able to handle only 2% of the calls, then it became 10, then it became 15, then it became 40, right? So I think we'll see that number go, like how much you can handle will keep going up, because there's a tail end of all these complex things like, hey, is my is my license plate ready, like number plate ready, like can I pick it up, or is some question around warranty that only a human would have been able to answer, or you have some question about a minder code that came up and you don't know what to do with it, right? Maybe 2 years ago you couldn't respond to that, but now you can. And then you can
Right.
actually tell them that this is the diagnosis, maybe you should come in and this is how long it would take and how much it would cost. Maybe you can also add this additional service, and hey, I also see that your car is like 4 years old and maybe you want to check out your trade-in valuation because I just pulled it out from Black Book and
Right.
here's the number, right?
Yeah, and I think it also depends on the amount of data sources available, right?
Yeah.
If a data source becomes available that can tell you whether or not the license plate is ready, then the AI can ingest that, right? And more data sources are coming online every single day, and that's where I think we get that growing percentage, because it's all just data, and whether it's stored in someone's head, a spreadsheet, or in an accessible thing online, like the more data that can be consumed, it can then be shared, right? Because the natural language is already there.
Yeah. And like even like in the past, like you have all these like data silos, right? They're locked up in like this interface and that browser and this login. But I don't know if you've seen any of those demos where the AI is like opening the browser and like
As
logging,
an agent,
doing all
yeah.
human things like as an agent. So they will make integrations even easier. So imagine it gets easier to access data, it gets easier to ingest it, and it gets very easy to like even express it to the customer, like through voice. Like all these three things happen at the same time. Just imagine the possibilities, right? It's crazy. I could pull anything from anywhere, and also like these LLMs and these large language models, as you call them, they know more than anybody can know about physics, about chemistry, about your OEM manuals,
All of it.
about how the engine works.
All of it.
So, what are the odds like we can beat the model at talking about a certain problem because it can see from all the perspectives possible to mankind, right?
Yep.
So, put all of it together, it's going to be a blast. But still, I think the challenge is the tools always exist, but I always like to tell my team that we're plumbers. We're taking all these different things and plumbing it together to make the best customer experience.
Mhm.
What that experience is going to be like, no one knows, right? That is the
Mm,
part we have to experiment and find out.
that's
So
the fun part.
yeah.
Well, awesome, Monik. It was fun chatting with you all the way through. Pushing your chips in and soccer and just imagining what can be with the product that you're building, that anybody's building with AI right now. We can't wait to see you at ASOTUCon and hang out and learn a little bit more. Kudos to all you're doing, and thanks for joining us today on Auto
Well,
Collabs.
yeah, thanks for having me. It's going to be a blast at the SodaCon, and we have a racing rig set up over there. So I
Yes.
think
That's
that's
going to
going
be
to
the
be fun.
thing.
Like, come race with us.
I don't care if it's 3x, 5x, 1x. If you're
I
going to
can't
listen to
listen to
4,000 calls, you're dedicated to building a product that doesn't miss,
I
right?
cannot listen to things at 3x. The fact that he listened to
There's no
4,000,
way.
what happens in your brain at that point? Like, I feel like you start to absorb another layer of conversational pattern that you
Mm.
probably wouldn't otherwise,
You
right?
know
Like,
what
I
you can
bet you can
probably
start to
hear
discern
actually a
things.
little bit quicker is voice inflection, because
Mm.
listening fast actually, like, you can hear up and down as a pattern across. And so that's actually an interesting pattern to think about, because there's so much when it comes to like conversational AI that has to understand not just what the words that were said or requested, but the intent or the like what's going on in that person's head when they say those words,
Mhm.
and their level of frustration or energy or joy. Golly, it's a complex thing, but I know that people like Toma are obviously trying to figure out like how do we fix this.
I listen to 3 calls and I'm instantly enraged. So I don't know.
Oh boy, I've been there.
I don't
Gotta
know.
take a
4
walk around the
calls,
lot.
4,000 calls. I mean, like, you're telling me that is dedication and also an insane amount of discipline. Because if I listen to 4,000 calls, I would be rage eating. I'd be
Family
4,000
lists.
pounds.
I mean,
Why did I just finish this much ice cream?
one of my favorite things from that conversation was the soccer metaphor when
Right.
his coach said, it's not an unsuccessful pass isn't a failure. It's an unsuccessful attempt at greatness.
Whoa.
That reframe is pretty cool.
Strong,
Right?
strong.
Real. Hey, look, well, I'm not going to go listen to 4,000 calls, but we don't have to, which is the good news. Right?
You
We
get
have
to you get to listen
AI
to Auto Collabs and get the recap.
even better. I don't know if there's a recap of the calls, but regardless, thank you so much to our guests today. And as always, on behalf of Kyle Mountsier, Michael Cirillo, and myself, thank you for joining us on Auto Collabs at 1X.
Welcome to Auto Collabs. Why are we recording?
Are we rolling yet?